everyone, and welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Samantha Anderson. I am a freelance artist and teacher hoping to inspire creativity. If you would like more videos like these, please take a second to like and subscribe down below. It really helps in the algorithm of YouTube to help get my videos seen to more people. If you want to receive notifications of when I go live, please make sure to hit the bell and choose all notifications. If you have any questions during or after the class, make sure to pop a comment down below and I will answer it as soon as I can. I'll be leaving timestamps down below so you can skip ahead to the start of class, but I will be sharing announcements as well as supplies, so make sure to stick around for that. If interested in learning more about my classes, please follow me on Facebook and Instagram, and feel free to check me out on Patreon, where I teach exclusive classes to those who support me. In Patreon, I also give traceables for all of my live classes, including this one. Lastly, if you would like to share your work after class with me and others who painted along with us, please head over to Facebook, as I have an artist community where you can share your finished painting with us. I'll leave links for all of that in the description box below. Thanks for joining me, and let's get started. Be working now. Hi everyone, welcome back to another live class. I am excited for this one. So we are painting this beautiful swan, and let me know what you think. So I had a patron recently point out that when my canvas is straight on, my hand sometimes is like in the way of what we're doing. So let me know if you would rather see it at an angle, so that when I'm painting, even if my hand is like right in front of it, you can still see what I'm doing. Let me know if you have a preference, because I want to make it the most accessible to you and easiest for you to see it. So let me know if you have a preference. I am excited for this one. So this is the traceable. If you are interested in it, I already put it on my canvas, just the basic shapes, and this one's going to be fun. If you've never done water before, I'm excited, because there's definitely a part to this where it's like, oh, I don't know what I'm doing, but then once you get further into the process, it's like, oh, this looks really good. Or but yeah, so welcome in. We have Barbie and Allison. Yes, say hello in the comments and let me know that you're here. I'm gonna go over some quick. Let me give you the traceable link just in case you are interested in joining my Patreon. You also get quick tips and other things depending on the tier. You can also get other tutorials and things like that. Let's see. You're a right-handed, angle camera from the left. Maybe that way you can sneak peek under your gun. That would make more sense, wouldn't it? The only problem is I'm at like a corner desk. That's gonna be really awkward. This is my setup. I'm at a corner desk. So if I have it on the left side coming over, then like, I don't know, I'll play around with it. I'll play around with it and see if I can, maybe I'll switch up my setup and see how that works. I'll play around with it. But for now, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it like this, and we'll figure it out. Cause I didn't even realize that, like, cause obviously I'm not watching the camera the whole time. I'm like painting. So I didn't realize that people couldn't see what I was doing until she said it. So if you have suggestions on things, say something, because it'll make it easier for everyone else. Okay? Or camera looking down. I could probably do that. Maybe not right now. But I could have it a little bit higher up, looking down a little bit. That's a good alternative if the other way doesn't work. Or I could try that first. Okay, let's get into class. I have the traceable. I just posted it if you would like it. If not, feel free to draw on. I'm not going to go over the basic shapes I mean, it's really easy. It's like an almond shape. You know, you draw out like an almond, and then it's got a little head there. It's a fairly simple shape, but if you don't want to draw it out, I do have a traceable. I'm using an 11 by 14 canvas, stretched canvas, so it has sides, tops, and bottom. We'll be painting that as we go along. I have my paper towel. I just realized I forgot to fill my water, so I'll be doing that. And then I have an array of brushes. You won't need all these brushes. A lot of what I like to do is figure out what brushes I'm using as I'm going, but things that I typically use in most, if not every class, is going to be my filbert, my large filbert. I'm also going to be using my medium to small filbert, and then I typically will have 2 round brushes available to grab. And then for details, I will have a liner brush. Depending on what kind of texture you want, you could get out a texture brush, which could be an old flat brush or a fan brush, whatever you want, whatever is your favorite brush for that. So I'm gonna go take a second. I'm gonna fill my water, and then I'll go over the colors. Okay, I'll be right back. It's really nice that my studio space is like, there's a sink right around the corner instead of having to run all the way to the kitchen like I was in the apartment. Okay, and then let's go over some paints. Today we will be using our, let me move these, our white and our black. Pretty standard. You can get out your green. I have this bright green, which I've almost run out of, so I'm actually going to grab another green as well, if I can find it. Alright, so this is going to be a little bit of a darker green. It's the one from, it's Master's Touch, which I believe is Hobby Lobby brand. But the rest of my acrylics are going to be either Liquitex or most of them are Hippie Crafter, which I have a fun announcement in the next couple weeks about that. So I have 2 different greens, but that's mostly because this one's almost out. So like I said, like I always say in every class, use what you have. They don't have to be exactly to what I'm exactly what I use. Go ahead and get out on Ultramarine Blue, because if you notice on the Swan, we see a white swan because that's what it is. It's a white swan. But when we're painting it, we have to look at the color that it actually is and not what color we know it to be. For instance, the cool parts that are in the shadow have a blue tint, and the warmer parts have a warmer yellow hue. So that's the difference when we're looking at like a real life, something in real life versus something when we're painting it. We have to look at what's actually in the painting, like the actual colors that we're seeing. So with that in mind, I'm going to get out my Ultramarine Blue as well as a medium yellow. And then the other thing is if you don't have an orange, you can always just grab your red and mix it with your yellow, but I am going to get out my orange. So we have an array of colors, and we're just going to go from there. I believe that's all. I already talked about the traceable. Every week in my Patreon, just a little snippet before we get started, every week in my Patreon for my Cobalt tier, I go live weekly in there, and we are working on a beautiful picture I found, and it's got very pretty blue hydrangeas in this vase. And I wanted to share this because a lot of people, a lot of beginners will start painting a picture and then get really discouraged. And this is the part that they get really discouraged at. This is what I call the ugly stage. You've blocked in some colors, it doesn't really look good, and then it ends up finding its way to the back of the closet and you don't see it anymore. You won't see it for years, and then you're like, oh yeah, I never finished that. I wonder why. Because you stopped at an ugly stage, and it's really hard to get past that sometimes, especially as a beginner. This is okay. It's okay for this stage to look ugly. Anyways, but yeah, so we're going through this every single week. This is the first class. If you want to join, it's $20 a month. You get probably 5.5 hours of instruction live, or you can rewatch it, and then you also will get access to literally every single other Friday tutorial that I've ever posted in my Patreon. So I think it's a really great deal at $20, and you can stay for 1 month, or you can stay longer and paint with me longer. Totally up to you, but that's available as well. So if you want to follow along the process, even if you're not painting it, definitely go onto my Facebook page, because that's where I post all of my work in progresses, new classes, new events, all of that sort of thing. All right, who is ready to paint? Me. I'm ready to paint. Okay. Like I said, if you didn't use the traceable and you want to, if you want to just draw that on, just make sure that when you're drawing it on, you don't press too hard with a graphite pencil, because it will bleed into whatever you're painting. I'm gonna go over this, at least the outside and the details of the face, with a black liner brush, so that I don't lose that when I'm painting in the rest of the colors, okay? So just so you can see it better, this is what it looks like. So if you're drawing this just by yourself without a traceable, have a roughly straight line at the bottom with maybe a little bit up in the back, and then it's kind of like an almond shape, and then you have that coming around like a little candy cane, okay? That's the basic shape, and then obviously the tail goes up. All right, so with that, I'm going to clear off my station, and I'm going to grab my black. Now, theoretically, if I was painting this on my own and I had some transfer paper and I had enough time to let this dry before I worked on like the next section, I probably wouldn't even worry about putting in the traceable, and I would just paint the background and then wait and then put in like and then put in the Swan. But for this specific class, we don't have time to just like, you know, wait a day to let it dry. So we're gonna kind of paint it as we go, okay? So I'm gonna get out just a little bit of black and a liner brush. If you don't have a liner brush, that is okay. Go ahead and just grab the smallest brush that you have. Maybe not smallest, but just a small brush would also be fine, okay? I like to use liner brushes for this sort of thing, just to minimize how much paint I'm using and how thick the lines are. So I'm going to grab water and mix it into my black. Whenever you're using a liner brush, you want to make sure that the consistency of your paint is really thin, otherwise it's not going to go on smoothly and you're going to have some problems with it. So if you make sure that it is thin, it'll go on smoothly and it'll be easy to maneuver, okay? So I'm just going to start, and you can start anywhere. I'm just going to focus on the details of the face for a second, just so I don't lose it in the process of doing the outer rim. See how smoothly that glides? Goes on really, really easy. when it starts to get a little thin, let me show you. When it starts to get like this, and you start seeing some of the texture of it, that's when you know that you either need more paint or you need more water in your consistency. But since I just did that whole stroke, I know I just need to go in for more paint. Another tip for liner brushes, and any round brush specifically, is when you're loading your brush, once you get that paint on your brush, twist it as you pull it off of the palette, because by twisting it, you'll allow all of those hairs to just collect into one line, and it will get rid of all those clumps. Alright, I'm just gonna color this in, because why not? It's already black, right? Since I already have black on my brush, I'm just going to color this section in. All right. There we go. I'm going to rinse out that brush because I probably won't be using that. If you want to, you can go around and do the bottom. I'm not going to, because I want to be able to do that kind of as I go. I mean, you can if you want to. If you do the black around the bottom, then when we're going around and we come in to do our reflection, the white, you are going to see the white, or you're going to see the black through the white. So if you'll notice down here how the green kind of comes in and the white's not as uniform as a line, you're going to lose that, and you're going to have to go over it a couple times. So I would suggest to not do the bottom unless you really, really want to. Okay. Yeah, I am ready. Okay, let's go ahead and make our green. Now, most of this is green. We're going to do a wash of the 3 different greens that's in this. You'll notice there's a dark section, a light section, and a medium section. You guys see that? On the right, it's dark, and then it goes into like a light section, and then it's like a medium section. We're gonna make those 3 colors and do essentially an undercoat. This is gonna be the ugly stage, okay? And then we're going to come back and fix it essentially. So I'm gonna get out my green, and we're gonna make a lot of this, because let me tell you, the only part that is not green in this picture is this little part right here. That's it. Oop, I have a knock at the door. Go ahead and get your green out. I think it's my son. Go ahead and get your green out, and we'll start mixing, okay? guys. My son is sick right now, so he was asking for medicine. Okay, so I'm gonna get out both greens that I have because I really like the vibrancy of this one. This one's from Hippocrafter. It's the pale green, which honestly it's not really pale. It's a little bit, I feel like it's closer to a neon than it is pale, but that's just the name of it. And then I'm gonna get out, let's see, do I even have any green in this? Oop, here we go. All right, be prepared to do 2 coats of this, especially with green. Green in particular, I find that it's fairly translucent. Did I get out my raw umber? I think I forgot to get out my raw umber. Also get out your raw umber if you did not get that out. I think I had it on the list below, but I missed it when I was getting out earlier. So I have out my black, my white, or I'm going to get out my white, black, white, and then both my greens and my brown. And these are all going to help me tint these different colors, okay? Let's go ahead. If you are using a flat palette, I would highly recommend getting yourself a palette knife because these are really, really helpful for mixing your paints beforehand. When you're using a brush, often you will not only waste paint in your brush, but then you're also dirty up your water unnecessarily, as well as it's just so much easier to mix up paint, especially large quantities of paint, with your palette knife, okay? I'm just gonna take this giant piece. I'm gonna start with the medium tone first. So I'm just gonna take all this green. I'm gonna start by putting a little bit of the lighter green and a little bit of brown and a tiny bit of black. We're gonna mix that together and see where we're at. The brown is gonna tone it down a little bit and make it a little bit more earthy. I think I'm gonna take some of this and make it into the dark section. So I'm just gonna add black to it. You wanna be careful about adding too much black to something because it's going to take away the color. It's gonna make it a little bit less saturated. That's why I usually like to add brown to things rather than black. All right, I'm just trying to make this a darker green. I think I like this color. All right, I'm gonna go back to the medium green. Let's see, and I think I'm gonna get out my yellow because these, the hue of this green is a little bit more on like the yellowish green side. So I'm gonna get out my yellow, and I'm probably gonna need more than that. I'm gonna add a little bit to the darker green. Okay, like that. And now I'm gonna add the rest of this to the lighter green. So the yellow is tinting the color and the black is going to darken it a little bit. not too much. I think I put a little bit too much black in it. So just play around with the colors, play around with your the yellow, the black, the brown, and just see how close you can get. I'm honestly just putting in these colors and kind of just adjusting them as I go. So it's hard for me to say, oh, you should add this color, because I don't know the exact color that you are working with. Like when I put in yellow, you might have put in too much yellow, or like more yellow than I put in, and now I'm saying, oh, I need more yellow. I don't want to tell you that you need more yellow when you originally put more yellow than I did, and you probably don't need that more yellow. Does that make sense? So just go based off of what you have. And I think these two colors are good. So I'm going to take some of this and I'm going to make my lightest one. So I'm going to need a little bit of white. I'm just going to mix together that white and see what color I come up with. And actually, I really enjoy this color right now. So I think I'm going to add a little bit of white to my medium green. I like that. Perfect. Okay, now I'm going to go back to my lighter green. I'm going to add a tiny bit more yellow and probably a little bit more white. Add a little bit more yellow. Yellow is nice because not only does it make it lighter, but it makes it a little bit more saturated with the color. White will lighten it, but it'll dull down the color. And if you're interested in color theory, I do have a color mixing class in my Patreon. So if you are a patron and you didn't know that, look up color mixing and you'll be able to watch that. Okay, so I have these colors. I honestly don't know if this will be enough paint to do 2 coats. Probably will not. If you're using a palette knife, make sure you rinse it off and wash it off. I like to just open up my paper towel and stick it in, wiggle, and it's all clean. There you go. Okay, now that we have all of the color, we might need to redo this after we're done with the first coat, but that's okay. I'm going to start on the left side right here, and I'm going to go around and come back. Okay, when you're doing like the in-between sections, there's going to be a little bit of blending going on, but this is just the first stage and it does not need to be perfect. Okay, so I'm going to wet my brush, which I'm going to dip it in the water and then wipe it off on the edge of the cup. Grab my medium green and I'm just going to start putting that on there. And I'm just making sure that I'm painting the top of this, because I sometimes forget to do that. Alright, so I'm going to get about a third of the way. I'm going to get about a third of the way, and once I'm done with that section, I want to make sure that I'm going all the way across this whole section to make sure that all of my brush strokes are in that direction, because as you'll notice, all of the water ripples and everything like that are going horizontal or not going vertical. So now I'm going to grab this light color, and if it doesn't look light enough, you can always grab some white or yellow. I think when I remake this color, I'm going to make it even lighter, but it's okay for now. And you're going to add it to this section, and I'm just going over this section right here where it's going in and out, and I'm just blending it a little bit. A trick for blending is not pushing down all the way. So whenever I blend, a lot of times I will barely touch the canvas, and that will help that. And that will help, because if you push down too hard, you're going to be moving all that paint, and you don't want to move it, you just want to blend it. So I'm just adding a little bit of white here to this section. And when you come back in, I'm going to make, when we come back in, I'm going to make it lighter. All right. So there's that, and the light part of this comes about this far, maybe, depending on how big the canvas is that you're using, about like an inch. So when you're initially putting on the paint, it's okay to go vertical, like I am now. I'm just running my brush along the side of it. It's when you're done putting on the paint that you want to make sure to go in the direction of those water ripples, because then it moves all those brush strokes from vertical to horizontal. All right, now I'm going to go into this dark color. Go into the dark color, and I'm just going to add that to this whole side. And I'm just going to blend this side into that green by just using my brush and like brushing into it. And this dart goes all the way down. So the reason that your dark one is probably a little bit less translucent is because it's got those other colors in it. It's got more brown, it's got more black in it. Same goes for the lighter version. It has that white, which really tones down the opacity and how translucent it is. Let me just do the bottom here. So a lot of times if you're trying to make a color less translucent, you're going to want to add either white or black to it, or just other colors in general. All right, now I'm going to go back into my lighter color. And I'm going to come in here. And I'm kind of just like generally avoiding the place where the reflection is. Yeah, my light color is definitely not light enough, but that's okay. I'm gonna come over it with lighter colors. And again, when I'm done with that section, I'm going to come over it and make sure that all those brush strokes are going side by side. I'm gonna go kind of switch back and forth between my medium brush, or sorry, color. My medium color and my light color. At this point, they're both kind of a medium color, so it doesn't really matter, at least for me. And my specific color, I didn't make it light enough. Okay, I'm not gonna lie. This is probably the prettiest ugly stage I've ever had. Anybody else? Because it still looks like a swan. It still looks like it's a reflection. All right, a cool little trick. If your background is still wet and you went over a spot that you were supposed to keep light, you're supposed to keep white, you're supposed to go around it, a cool little trick is to grab a unused brush, just a dry, clean brush, get it wet, and what you're gonna do is you're going to reactivate that paint and just kind of wiggle your brush and just take away the paint that you don't want there. See that? Why didn't people teach us this? Well, I'm teaching it to you. I'm fairly convinced that more experienced artists aren't actually better. We just know how to fix our mistakes better. That's all. That's all. And we just decide to paint longer, like for more, just paint longer amounts of time. All right, I'm gonna rinse out that brush. I'm gonna be like, hey, look it, I want this to go out further. So instead of putting 5,000 layers of white on it, I'm just gonna take my clean brush and reactivate that paint because it's still somewhat wet. So yeah, that's good. Okay, I think that's great. It's pretty good. I'm gonna bring this little bum inside a little bit, back end, just ever so slightly. All right, so once you got that down, I'm going to rinse out my brush, get all that green out there. This has to dry fully before we can put another layer. If we try to put another layer on it right now, this green is very, very much still wet. So if we tried to do a second coat of this, it would end badly because it's tacky. It'll be tacky by the time we get to it, and then you'll just start lifting up the paint rather than painting on top of that layer. So while that is all drying, we are going to put our first coat on our swan. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to get out my white. I already have some yellow out, but I do want to make sure that the yellow I'm using has no green on it. So I'm just going to take the yellow that has no green in it. It's not tainted by the green over there. And then your white, same thing, make sure it doesn't have any green in it. And then you're also going to get out some blue. So get out your blue, your ultramarine blue. Okay. And we are going to mix together a few whites. All right, so I have this white over here, and then I'm gonna grab the white that I put right there. Make sure it doesn't have any green in it. I'm going to add a tiny bit of yellow to one of them, and I'm going to add a tiny bit of blue to the other. And make sure that you wipe your brushes off in between that, or else you'll add yellow to your blue and blue to your yellow, and then you'll end up with green. I want a little bit more blue actually. In my blue, I'm also going to add a tiny bit of black to gray it out. Just ever so slightly, just so it's not so vibrantly blue. Essentially, the blue is the reflection of what it's reflecting, like maybe the sky. And then the black is the actual like shadow part of it. Alright, so we got our two colors here. And just wipe that off. I'm going to switch over to a smaller brush now that I'm kind of doing a little bit more details. And we are just getting the base shapes and base colors, okay? So this back part is going to be the, like all of it's going to be that bluish gray color, and then the other side and kind of like the top of it is going to be that yellow color, okay? So I'm going to start with the yellow color. And this is also, you kind of fix any pieces of this that came in too far. And we'll probably have to do that again when we actually finish the background. But again, this is the first coat of this. We're still in the ugly stage, okay? And there's a large portion of the head that is this color. And then I'm also going to put this on the underside. I'm going to do this side, his chest. Alright, and then once you're done with that, you're going to want to do this on the reflection as well. We're just getting kind of the main colors in there. Now I'm going to switch over to, rinse out my brush and switch over to the other color. Okay. Switch over to that blue, a little bit of water. And this is going to come up to about there, kind of comes back down. And later we'll come in with like some white around like here and start putting in the light colors and the white colors and the different like sections of that, but we don't need to be worried about that right now. We're just blocking in our color. All right, now it does get a little bit darker up in the head area, so I just dipped my brush into blue and black and I'm mixing that with my color that I'm using right now, just to give it a little bit of a darker wash. I'm just kind of trying to fuzzy out, like fuzzy the edges, just so there's not like a straight line. And I'm doing that by just doing a bunch of little strokes like this, barely touching the canvas. It's going to help the process later when we start kind of making the feather texture. Alright, I'm going to add a little bit of this darker version right at the edge here. Kind of blend it in a little bit. That way I can start working on the underside. And alright. Again, I'm just filling in this area. I'm not really doing anything special or The only thing that I'm really paying attention to right now are the tones and the colors that I'm painting. So right now it gets a little bit darker and grayer. So I'm going to add a little bit of, it keeps keep accidentally grabbing like green over here. So I'm grabbing that blue and gray to make a darker tone. I'm going to switch back to my yellow white color, and I'm going to put a little bit more in here because I think I forgot this part. You can already tell it's starting to take shape. I'm going to take some black and put in this bottom section. And that's pretty much, I think that's pretty much it for the reflection, with the exception of the beak. All right, I'm gonna get out my orange and go ahead and put in a first coat of that, and then I think we're good on the first coat. Oh, that was a lot of orange. It's popped out. All right, I am mixing together some like a tiny bit of brown, a tiny bit of black in with my orange to create the darker tone for the beak, like the shadow part of it. And then I can come in with a little bit of a brighter orange. On the top of it. y'all still with me? So this is essentially our first stage. It's looking okay for an ugly stage. I'm not gonna lie, it's looking okay. So now we're going to finish the background so that we can come in and finish the swan, because we can't finish the swan until we are done with the background. Okay. So give me 1 second. I'm gonna bring this up just a little bit. Like my proportions are just a little off. Okay. Now that we got that, I'm going to work on my changing the color of my lighter green color. Okay. And it needs to be just a tiny bit lighter. So I'm going to add this yellow and the rest of my white here. Right. So I think that's probably a good color. I'm going to come back in here. So essentially you have, with the background, you have 3 different background colors. We're going to have a solid, fairly solid background. Then we're going to come in with the other colors and start adding in those other reflections, and that's what's going to make it look like it's water. So I'm going to come in here with this medium color, put on another coat, make sure it's solid and I can't really see all those background streaks. I'm just filling in this area, just like I did before. And you can start this process if you want. You can grab a little bit of that lighter color and add little lines, like a couple lines as it gets closer to the lighter edge. And then what you're going to do is you're just going to gently go over it and blend it in. don't know if you can see that. You see those little lines in there? If you do it while it's wet, it will blend better. So I'm doing dark now, and I'm just placing those lines in there and then going over it with a flat brush, and it's blending right in. And we can always add more a little bit later. I'm gonna go in with my lighter brush, my lighter color. I'm gonna fill in this space first. And I'm just going back and forth. Going back into my dark, and I'm gonna blend that in. If you need to brush off the light before going back into the dark, you can do that. The point is just to try to make it as seamless as possible. I'm going to do the inner part of the head, just like where that curve of the neck is. I'm going to go in and add just a little bit of those dark sections and blend it a little bit. This is exactly why we don't put too much work into the swan yet, because we still have to finish all this background part. With barely any, while this is still a little bit tacky, while there's barely anything on my brush, I'm taking this light color and I'm adding a little bit of lighter section over on the left. Alright, rinse out my brush. We're going to go to the darkest part now. I'm going to grab a little bit of this lighter green and just put it on the edge here. And blend it in a little bit. Don't forget to paint the side. And just kind of blend it over. So once I get that paint on there, I'm just going very lightly back and forth. And I've got quite a couple of quite a few of the medium strokes over here, kind of coming in from an angle on this side. So while this is wet, I'm just going to add those. The trick is to do each section while it's wet. Right now I'm going to start hinting at the fact that there's a ring of wave going around. I'm gonna start adding the lighter color down here. I switch to a smaller brush while I'm inside this little area. So I'm just switching to my smaller filbert and the same color. Alright, and some of this dark kind of comes over here on this side over here, right next to it. Alright, so I'm just kind of fixing the head a little bit. I felt like the reflection head was a little bit too small. So I'm just trying to make the ripples come around a little bit. Oops. So that when I come in with the green, it's gonna like make more sense. Alright, I'm just coming in with the green a little bit. Any place I see where it comes in, and you don't have to follow, you don't have to follow this exactly. In fact, I'd probably encourage you not to try to follow it exactly because it would probably be near impossible. Hello, welcome in. People are saying hi, so. Alright. So I'm gonna go back to my larger brush And we have the dark color all the way until we get to about here, and then it starts getting light again. And this part is interesting because it's light, but it's also dark. So there's gonna be lights and darks in this. So we're gonna start off by putting our lights in, just this whole section. I'm gonna put in this light color, maybe a tiny bit of water. And then, while this is still wet, we're going to take our dark and we're going to place it pretty much wherever we want. Little waves, and this is a bit more random. It's not just side to side, it's kind of like closer. And then what you're going to do is kind of wipe off the excess, and you're just going to take your brush and go all the way across it, and it's just going to blend it in. And then you can always go back over it and put in some of the darker areas. Barely go over it. You can blend it in slightly. And I think that's a good base. We are going to do one more coat of like detail, but it's not going to be the extent of what we're doing right now. So I'm going to come back in with the medium tone. And we have this dark colors on this side. I'm going to go into my smaller brush so I can get around. Alright. While this bottom section is drying, I'm just going to go back over this top section with this filbert and add a couple of these medium colored lines. And maybe even a couple of these darker ones that go a little bit further in. There's a couple of them. Do I have my own studio? Or are you still sharing? Sharing in that it's at my house. So before I was in my apartment and I was in my bedroom. Now I at least have a little space to myself, and I'm not like my bed isn't in my background. For all of you who were here pre-move, that was a thing, and I had to like make sure that it was like made every time. I was like, I need to make sure my bed is made and it's not like a mess behind me. But we have a house now, so I'm in my house still, but I at least don't have to worry about making my bed before class. Yeah, it's really great. Is the support canvas or panel? I have a stretched canvas. Is that what you're asking? It's not a canvas panel. It's a stretched canvas. Yeah, of course. This one is actually not a Frederick's canvas. This is just one off of from like Hobby Lobby, actually. I was using Frederick's for like practically the whole year because they sent me a bunch and I actually just ran out, so I'm actually not using those right now. But while I was using them, they were fantastic. So these ones are actually they're like thinner, so they're not as sturdy. I will say that the ones in Frederick's were really nice, and they were like really sturdy. They had a bigger frame on the other side, which was really nice. But I didn't have time to order any before classes, so I went to Hobby Lobby, as any entrepreneur artist probably has at least once in their lifetime. All right, I'm gonna add some lighter tones on this side. Yeah, Frederick's can be pricey, but if you are, obviously, like if you're painting stuff and you're selling stuff, it's really nice to have the higher quality. But yeah, I totally understand not being able to afford it. Because honestly, I'm kind of in that boat too. I think the ones from Michael's are actually cheaper from the ones from Hobby Lobby. Not cheaper quality or anything like that. I just think that they're like $1 or $2 cheaper. Like the little packs that they come in. Alright, I'm going to take this lighter and just put some lighter hues in the water over here. The background is essentially just a whole lot of lines. That is true. Not all pricey ones are better. But using Frederick's canvas, at least the ones that they got me for the last year and a half, I will say are significantly different in terms of quality than this one. And I know that's not always the case, but in this case for me, it definitely was different. So I'm just adding these lines. I feel like the more lines you add, the more realistic it looks. Love the lines for the reflections. Yeah, me too. I am really liking this. I'm gonna make a couple coming out this direction. You just gotta make sure that it's like flat and in the same direction as everything else. I'm gonna do a little bit of a medium tone in here. Oh, it's not dark enough. It's still not dark enough. And then I'm gonna take some of this lighter and put a little bit more light in here. Now, because this water is a little bit closer to you, it's gonna have a little bit more like movement. And a lot of it is just kind of a little bit random. You have like dark, like really, really dark darks right next to the really, really lights. And then once we start adding the water, like the white part, which I think I'm almost ready to, but we do still have it's almost 5. We have 20 minutes until class is supposed to be done, so we do have to keep moving. I'm gonna start putting I'm gonna start putting like there's water like ripples going around that's reflecting the sky, so it's white. And I have a feeling once we start putting that in, it's going to look really good. I went down too far. All right, so I'm just doing kind of like a line. And this is just gonna come all the way around to about here. And it's going to come around. All right, I'm gonna switch to my liner brush. I'm gonna switch to my liner brush, and I think that will help with that. I'm going to add a couple lines here and there, and then the rest of it I'm actually going to get out my my toothbrush and put some specks on here. So I'm going to get it a little bit wet, get a little bit of water, and just a little bit and then we can even, after you do that, you can even take your brush and just slightly go over it. It will make it look like they're little specks. You see that? So you do your splattering, and then you gently go over it with your brush, and it moves everything. All right, I think that is pretty good for the water. Let's go ahead and do the details of the rest of this, because we don't have a whole lot of time left. So I'm just gonna put a couple more. work on the tail a little bit. The reflection tail. And the upper tail. For the feathers on the tail, I'm going to just flick up. I'm just going to flick up, and it's going to give that kind of tail feather sort of texture. All right. Do I, wait, I don't stick my tongue out? I don't know. Maybe I do in my head. I do get very focused though. Thank you, Kate, Carla. And welcome in. There's a lot of chatting going on, which is kind of a fun thing. Usually it's pretty quiet, so it's kind of a fun thing. I know you guys were like talking about Blick and everything. I'm like half trying to read it and half trying to ignore it so I can just focus on the painting. Okay, so let's go ahead and finish this up. I'm going to, let's see. I'm going to fix the tail just a little bit. It's pretty white. Now I'm going to go over all the parts that I went over with my green. I am going to go over it once more. Just to make sure that outer edge is really nice and clean. And I'm just doing this with plain white so that I can come over it with a lighter color if I need to. Get the inside of this side. Okay. So what's funny is the picture that I'm looking on is on my screen of my computer, and I know from splattering there are specks on there already, not even including from this painting. And so I'm looking at the painting, and I'm looking at the original photo, and I'm like, are there specks there, or is that from my computer screen? So I'm like, oh, I want to do more specks, because I'm just like, I feel like there should be more, or maybe it's just my screen. I don't know. I'm gonna do a couple more. I'm just going to pull it across. Okay. Yeah, I like that. You can't really see it on the camera, but can you? Yeah, there's specks there. I can see them. Okay, I'm going to get a small brush and put in all the black pieces again, because I went over it with the green. And I'm also going to go over this part. Thank you, Eddie. Yeah, if you guys have a question, make sure to at me, because it highlights my name. Otherwise, it's gonna get lost. So, Carla, toothbrush. Yes, I have an old toothbrush. It's actually my son's PJ Masks toothbrush, in case you were wondering. Works great, because he brushed his teeth until it just is absolutely frayed. So that's what I'm using, in case you were wondering. Works fantastic. Okay, now I'm gonna do another coat of the beak, which is just that black and orange, essentially. And then just fade that into a lighter version of it. You are welcome. I'm proud of my used toothbrush splatter. You know, it's fun. Alright, so now I'm going to come in here and kind of fix this, because this line is too straight. So I'm going to take this green and move that line. Move that bus. And then I can come back with a white-ish color. And put that highlight on the right side of the beak. Coming down. And that's also what you will use to outline the bottom part, and you're gonna go kind of in that little wave. Do you varnish your paintings? I varnish them if I sell them. So I have an Etsy store, I have an online store, and if one of them sells, then I will take that one, I will dust it off, I will varnish it, and then I will ship it out. I keep all my paintings in like a protective cover, so they're not usually dusty very much. But if they are, then I'll dust them off before varnishing. But regardless, I do varnish them, but only if I sold them, because I don't want to varnish all of them and then waste them. Wait. Please move your camera to your right a bit more. Like that. The painting's in the middle of it right now. Here, I can do that if that's helpful. What brand of varnish? I don't even know because I've only sold one painting. I believe it's Liquitex. But yeah. Oh, my face. I don't, because my camera is like right there and I don't really want that in the shot. So it's like here, or I'm like awkwardly to the side. So how much do I sell my paintings for? It depends on the painting. Originals sell for, I think, between like $150 and like $400, depending on. I mean, some of the paintings I spent like 5 hours on plus. So it just depends on the painting. But I was thinking, let me know if you're interested. I've teamed up with what's called Printify, where you can get prints of the work. So it's like you can get a print for the same size. You can get a print for like $50 rather than, an original work for a lot more. Let me know if that's something you guys would be interested in, because I think it would probably be attainable, like a lot more attainable. Sorry, I realized that like the water lines were way too round and I wasn't liking them. Like it needs to be flatter and like more squished. Painting Samantha sold was my absolute favorite. Yeah, the one painting I sold, my husband was just like, but that one, it's so good though. It was my favorite. It was one of my favorites too. It was a Patreon class, and it was definitely one of my favorites as well. I'm liking this better than it was before. I was so happy when I sold that. I was just like, Mike, I sold a painting. It's very exciting when somebody buys your work, because it's almost like validating in a way. I have to stop with the water because I could literally keep going with the water, and we still have to finish. We still have to finish the Swan. Okay, I'm going to... Oh, where do I start? The white is pretty much there. I'm going to start putting in the white of the Swan that's on this side, and then I can darken it a little bit. So... I'm just gonna start putting fluffy. I'm using my filbert, so I'm just gonna use my filbert and start putting fluffiness on like where the tops of each one is, and there we go. And there's kind of this section over here. And then I'm going to come back into this blue, and I'm just going to blend that in. And you can come back with a little bit of black. And I'm going to add that just to this bottom section. And remember that the reflection is reflecting what it sees, not necessarily what we see. So I'm just going to add some of this dark in this area, start adding the different colors that I want to have, mapping out all of the dark pieces. Thank you. All right, I'm going to make a little bit of a bluer tone of this color. Just add a little bit of saturation to it. And put in this second coat here. And while this is all wet, I can then add my highlights and lowlights. I can add a little bit of black here, black here. And I know that looks like a lot right now, but just give it a second. I'm going to wipe that off. And then I'm going to do little tiny circles and blend that in to the blue that I just put on here. Maybe that goes up a little bit farther. And you can just blend, 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 blend. Come in with some white. Blend that in. Put some white over here. Blend the bottom of that. And come back in with that more of a bluish hue. Add some darker hues and colors to this section. And I'm going to go ahead and just fill this, pretty much this whole area, with that same kind of off-white blue. And then I'm going to darken the underside. And then I get to blend that in. I'm gonna wipe that off and blend, 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 blend. Down into that blue color that I just put over everything. And the bottom here doesn't have to be as precise because it is a reflection, and if it's not as on point, that's totally fine. I'm gonna take the white and just put complete straight white on this section. Thanks, Peggy. And I just realized you can't see what I'm doing. You see, guys, this is why I don't move my camera, because then I forget that I moved it and you can't see what I'm doing. I think it is looking great right now. I do want a little bit more detail in this area, so I'm just going to try to copy that's not really what I wanted, but that's okay. There's kind of some darkness over here. Just going to blend that in a little bit, just to get the gist of that. All right, now this, the part of the face that is shadowed has a little bit of a warm shadow, so you're gonna add a little bit of brown to it, okay? Bye everyone who has to leave. I understand I'm going a little bit late. The water took a tiny bit longer than I anticipated it, but that is okay. I'm going to stay until I finish it because I don't want to leave anybody hanging and confused on how to finish their painting. So I'm going to get my pure white and just go all the way up And I'm just going to add a couple lines here and there just to mimic the water. Put a little bit of white on this end. Alright, now I'm going to finish off the actual swan, and I'm going to go in with that darker kind of brownish shadow. So I got a little bit of brown with this white, so it's a little bit of a warmer shadow. Maybe a little bit darker. I'm just going to brush it around. Gonna add a little bit of black to this section, and I'm just going to follow that all the way around. A little bit too much water on my brush. I'm gonna dry that off. And I'm going to fade that into that blue, the cooler shadow. All right. And the last thing I'm going to do for that section is I'm going to get some white and yellow. going to just add this yellow right where that touches the brown. And then there's also yellow on the top of the head. And there's some yellow in here and a little bit of yellow up here. And the rest of this, other than like there's like a tiny bit of blue up here, like a cooler gray, the rest of this should be our white. And I'm just going to take some white and blend in very outer edge of this. And I'm going to go ahead and flick in a little bit. Like that. And then I'm also going to flick a little bit down from the end of like the outer edge. One more thing on the tail. We're almost done. Like so. Trying to think of anywhere else where I feel like I need Alright, there's one last white piece underneath the head. Like under his, like kind of where his neck is. Oh no. Oh no, never mind. I was like, what's that? Alright, and I think we are done. I would like to say I'm done. Oh, there's a little bit of texture here. We'll do this real fast. There's a little bit of texture just on the very edge of this, and I'm just using my filbert to barely touch it and give it that texture of like a little bit of feather. Alright, I think that is it. See, I say that and then I'm just like, oh, I want to do more. Sometimes it's hard to put it down and just like say it's done, you know? Just gonna put a little bit more color in the side of this, and then I'll call it. Yeah, it's probably because we spent like the whole class on it rather than putting our time in the our swan. You're welcome, Peggy. Thanks for joining us. All right, I think I'm gonna call it. Well, thank you so much for joining me. If you ended up painting or you're going to paint with me, make sure that you leave your painting on my Facebook page. I would love to see it. I always love seeing paintings that you do for my classes. I have a Facebook group that I always post new classes to, and you can get the first heads up on upcoming classes. And then I also have a Facebook community where you can share all your artwork from my classes and see everybody else who painted the same class, which is really fun. So please make sure to head on over there, follow me for updates, as well as enter into the group where you can have fun with that. Okay, thank you so much for joining me. I'm sorry it went so late, but I look forward to the next one, and we will chat with you soon. Bye, guys.